Hey songwriters, welcome back to another video here at Home Songwriting. I'm Chad Shank and I'm so glad that you can join me today. And you know what? Today I'm super excited to be interviewing someone who makes some really cool pop songs. And we're talking to Chris from Blue Swans. Let's go. So welcome back songwriters. We're talking to Chris from Blue Swans today. I'm super excited to learn more about the project and learn more about the music that I've been listening to lately as well. So Chris, welcome to At Home Songwriting.
Thank you so much, Chad. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I discovered you on Instagram and I had just kind of been following you because we're both located in Minneapolis, in the Minneapolis area. So I started listening to what you were doing and there's an EP out there and I just thought, you know what, I want to talk to Chris and find out what is Blue Swans and like how did this music come to be that I like. So maybe to start off for people who haven't heard of Blue Swans, how would you describe the style that you make?
Yeah, I would say Blue Swans is a pop project, and I don't think it's specific to any kind of pop necessarily. We like to be creative and experimental. So we've got, a combination of like indie pop, and we're working on some more like mainstream top 40 type vibes currently. So, but anywhere in that pop vein is kind of where we live.
So let's rewind a little bit. So I know when before we were on here today, you said that you had written a lot on guitar and kind of written some music yourself. How did you get into music? Like what has been your evolution or what has your evolution been like?
Yeah, well, I would say I grew up in a musical family. My mom was a very accomplished pianist, and she played at church all the time, and different like community choirs and things like that. So all of us kids, I have four siblings. We all were in piano lessons, violin lessons, band, marching band, that kind of stuff. So think, music has just always been a part of my life in one way or another.
At what point did you start to think, hey, I want to make my own music?
I started writing songs when I was probably 16 or 17. Um, and I was just kind of like writing. I remember I was like on a trip on an airplane, and I just like started writing while I was, in the air. And I came back home and I like was so excited to show my dad, because my dad was into writing poetry at one point and things like that. So yeah, that's kind of like where I started.
Cool. I know you were playing in band and stuff, you said, did you focus on like piano or guitar at that point, or what instruments did you focus on when you started to think about, hey, I want to write songs?
Yeah, so I picked up the guitar when I want to say like 14, 15. Um, and we just like had one from when my brother had taken lessons a couple years prior. And so I just like found his chord book and kind of just taught myself. And I would just like sit in my room and strum chords over and over and over again.
Yeah. That's kind of
So,
how
yeah.
that's how I learned how to play keyboard is I kind of had books and I just learned by ear basically. So
Yeah.
did you take lessons at any point or was it all self-taught?
Guitar was all self-taught.
Well,
Yeah, I had other lessons for other instruments, but I would say like guitar was kind of what stuck for me. Yeah, but that was all self-taught.
who are your influences? You know, when you were growing up, did you grow up listening to certain artists or certain writers, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, growing up, I was in the church world, and so that was the type of music that I was around,
Sure.
and I really started to like understand what I liked as I got older and just like outside of my parents' house and things like that. Um, but my influences that like really play into my music now, I would say Bon Iver, huge, 1975, Chelsea Cutler, um, Muna. Yeah, so quite a few. But
So we talked about you being 16 and kind of starting to write. Did you have the bug like from there on out? Like, was that where the seed was planted and you just kept writing, or what did that look like?
yeah, well, I kept writing, and I didn't really start to do anything with it though until I was out of college. It was just kind of this thing that I did to make sense of life. And I would literally just like sit in my dorm room in college and write songs and play songs to myself. And that was it. Um, so yeah, it took me a while to actually like get out there with it.
When did that start? When did you start to think like, hey, I kind of want to like take this a little bit further?
Um, After college, well, I played like my first, I wouldn't call it a show, but I was like entertainment during a fashion show on my university campus.
Awesome.
Um, and so I had like a 3 song set, and that kind of like really lit the fire. I was like, oh my God, I was so nervous, but that was so fun. And then from there on, I just started like open micing and doing that whole scene.
When did the name Blue Swans show up?
Um, that showed up when I started this project. So it would be about 3 years ago now. And originally I was just going to call it Swans, but we ran into another band that had, like decent following, and they had just released a record and all of that. So they were called Swans, and I decided to pivot. Um,
Cool.
yeah.
Yeah, no, it's hard to find a good band or artist name because so many things have been, taken. You have to kind of Google and do some searching to see what's out there for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I know we were talking about how you feel like the songs that are out right now are starting to be a little bit dated to you, but obviously they're kind of new to me, they're new to other people as well. Um, how did that EP come to life? Did you write the songs and produce it yourself, or what did that look like?
Yeah, so I wrote the songs on guitar, and of course lyrics and melody. And then I connected with a producer who was actually based out of Eau Claire at the time, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. His name's Kyle Culver, and yeah, we just had a mutual friend that connected us, and we kind of hit it off, and just he produced the record for me. So
Awesome.
that's how that came to be.
Yeah, I would definitely call it pop music, and it kind of has like an ethereal kind of emotional sound to it. I
Yeah.
like you said, you didn't really know how to categorize it. I mean, there's different I hear different influences within the whole thing, which I think is super cool. Um, I think my favorite song is Waves. How did that song come around?
Oh man, I was so sad. um, that song, yeah, that was just like pure sadness and me and alone in my apartment. But I think one thing that's really cool about that song is like it turns into this like kind of anthemic piece towards the end, where from like a musical perspective it feels a little bit more triumphant by the end of it. um but
Yeah.
yeah.
I would say that it doesn't sound sad, even though the some of what you're saying is sad, obviously, but yeah, I think it's a super cool song. So good work on that
Oh,
one.
thank you.
So what does your songwriting process look like? I know you said you write songs on guitar, but where does the that seed of a song start for you? Do you have a process?
Yeah, so it's kind of ever evolving as I like learn more about songwriting and just everything that goes into it. But originally, and I still do this, but I write in my notes app on my phone. And so if there's just a thought or a phrase or just like something hits, I write it down, and I just try to collect as much of those little pieces just as I'm going about my daily life as I can.
Cool.
Um, yeah. So that's kind of where it starts. And then from there, I've started writing choruses first, and then kind of like, falling back into the verses. But really trying to create the theme of what is this song about first and foremost, and then aligning everything else with that.
Absolutely. No, that's an efficient way to write, is doing the hook and the chorus first and then figuring out, okay, well, how did we get here, or where do we go from here? What
Mm-hmm.
does that look like? Um, do you find that, I know you said you're kind of writing down the ideas in, I call that like a hook book, even though it's on a phone, it's still a hook book because I do that too. I have like tons and tons of stuff in there.
Yeah.
Um, does it start as lyrics first for you then? Is it usually like a concept, then you kind of go to the guitar, or what does that look like for you?
Yeah, sometimes it's literally just like one word or like two words put together, and I like how it sounds. I like the word, and it could stem from there. Other times it's more of a phrase, and uh, I add, a couple lines right then and there while I'm like in that moment of like, oh, inspiration. That's super cool. So it does vary, but yeah, I mean, just collecting those little bits really helps me get things started.
So I know that the EP was kind of your own thing, and the EP is actually called On My Own, which is kind of fitting, I guess. I mean, you worked with a producer, obviously, but the songs were kind of yours. It sounds like you've expanded a little bit. Tell us more about kind of the Blue Swans project and sort of what's happening now.
Yeah. So the producer that I was working with, I convinced him to join the band. And it's been just a dream of mine for such a long time to be in a band and have that experience. And so I just, uh, he joined, and then I met a bass player that he used to play with who also joined. And so it's the three of us in the band, and then we bring on a guitarist and drummer for shows.
Awesome. Do you have
Yeah.
shows coming up, or what are you working on right now?
Yeah, so our next show is on February 26th. It's at the UW Eau Claire campus, at their venue called The Cabin. So we're excited about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then just working on, booking for spring and summer.
Do you co-write with the group? Has it gotten to that point yet, or is it kind of you working on songs and then bringing it to them, or what does that look like?
Yeah, there's a lot of co-writing now. Like you said, originally it was just me, myself, and I writing, and now most of our music is very collaborative, which makes it a lot of fun. And also like it pushes you, it challenges your ideas, as we have different perspectives on things. And but I think it's a very like positive environment, and we're writing better music because of it, I think.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, has it changed the Blue Swan sound at all, or what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I think we're actually like getting closer and closer to like the sounds that I've envisioned for this project.
Cool.
Um, yeah, I don't know like if you've experienced this with songwriting, but like you're writing and you're like, this is cool, but like it's still not exactly what I'm shooting for. And I think like as we work together and bring our collective experience, we're getting closer and closer to that.
Does that, I mean, for me, I do a lot of solo writing. I do co-write with people sometimes, but I know when I'm working on an album or like a project, sometimes it takes a while to even figure out like what sound do I want the whole project to sort of have, you know? So it's a little bit of like just writing and whatever comes out, and then you're like, oh, this feels like a direction. Is that kind of what you mean? Or are you taking songs and sort of refining them, or is it both, or what does that look like?
Um, I mean, I think like in terms of determining sound, it's like I would say Kyle and I, my producer, we're like very much on the same wavelength a lot of times. And so he's working on like building out tracks, and I'm working on writing lyrics. And then we bring those things together and give feedback to each other on each of those pieces.
Cool.
And that really helps us like narrow in on like the sound and the vibe that we're going for.
That's that's good that you found someone that you are on that same wavelength, because that can be a challenge as well. It's just finding a collaborator that you sort of both get it, right? So
Yeah.
I
Yep.
think it I think
Absolutely.
it I think it comes out in the quality of the songs, especially on the EP that I've heard.
Awesome. Yeah. Thank you.
So I know you said you've been learning more and more about songwriting as time goes on. Do you kind of study the craft of songwriting, or how do you learn? How do you keep yourself growing?
Yeah. I think I mostly learned by experience. And I definitely like have different songwriting pages on social that I follow. And so I'll pick up little tips and tricks, exercises, things like that. But I think like just by going and doing, I learn a lot of like, hey, maybe I don't want to approach writing from that, angle again. It seemed like it wasn't cohesive. So it's mostly by doing and the practice of it that I kind of continue to learn.
So if there is a 16-year-old watching this, somebody who's like you were at that time, do you have any advice to them, that they may be thinking about doing music? Like, what would you say to them?
Do it. Don't be afraid to do it. At 16, you have so much time, and that's your greatest asset at that point in time. So just go for it and don't worry about what anybody else thinks.
Awesome. Um, so as we kind of get ready to wrap up the interview here, is there anything about Blue Swans that you want our viewers to know that we haven't talked about?
This is a tough one. I don't know.
It's okay. Tell us where we can find your music.
Yeah, so you can find us on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, any streaming platform that you have. Um, and we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, Facebook. I would say like Instagram is where we spend most of our time and effort, so catch us there. And yeah, we have a couple releases coming up. We don't have a defined date, but within the next couple of months you'll see some new music from Blue Swans.
Awesome. So music that's not your own, what's kind of on repeat for you?
Ooh, I mean, I always have Chelsea Cutler on repeat, but I would say one of the most influential songs that I listened to like all the time for years for me was 715 Creeks by Bon Iver. And that song, I can't really explain it, but like it literally ties into almost every single thing I've written since I heard that song. In like it could be the tiniest piece of inspiration from that track, but yeah, that song has changed my world.
Awesome. Well, Chris, it was great to have you on the channel. Hopefully, when there's new music, we'll have you back and maybe talk more about writing songs and stuff like that as well. But I appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah, thanks so much, Chad.
Thanks so much, Chris. That was a great conversation with Chris from Blue Swans. I'm super excited that there's new music in the works. Make sure you check out the EP that's out right now called On My Own. It has some great songs out there. Blue Swans, you can find it on the major streaming sites. I've been listening on Apple Music and YouTube Music, but you can find it out there as well. So again, thanks for joining us here at Home Songwriting. This is where you can learn tips, techniques, meet other songwriters, and honestly just talk about songwriting stuff. If you haven't yet, be sure to hit subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you next video. Let's go.